Hey everyone, welcome to topic number 18, order of operations with real numbers. So we're going to do order operation again, and this time involving with all the real numbers like integers, fractions, and such. So we are going to follow order operation still. However, we're going to do it in terms of looking at these problems as a term, okay, as different terms. So remember in the previous video, we talked about to identify terms, we need to use addition and subtraction signs outside the parentheses, okay, to identify terms. So let's take a look at this first one. Okay, -8 plus, right? Plus sign, addition outside the parentheses. 8 divided by -4 times 4. So I'll only say one plus sign. So one plus sign separate between two terms. What's in front of my plus sign is a term. What's behind my plus sign is a term. Okay, the plus sign goes with the terms that follows. So as you can see, my second term, okay, my first term, there's no operation, just -8. My second term involves with positive 8 divided by -4 times 4. So I got a division and a multiplication. So multiplication division is on the same level, so we'll do this from left to the right. So let's go ahead and figure out what second term is. Okay, positive 8 divided by -4, it should be -2, right? -2 times 4 will give me -8. So that means my second term comes up to be -8. My first term is still -8. Remember, every term got to have a sign. So now I got two -8, right? So when you're ready to do the operation, now you can say this problem is -8 minus 8. So two terms, both of them has the same sign. We will add. Since both of them are negative terms, my answer will be -16. All right, let's look at the one on the right. 2 times -3 minus, so here's a subtraction sign outside the parenthesis, minus parenthesis 4 plus 2, whole thing squared. Okay, so my first term, which is in front of my subtraction sign, this is one term, and this first term has one operation, multiplication. My second term is behind the subtraction sign. Okay, and the second term has what? Has addition, one operation inside the parenthesis that I gotta do first. Then I'm gonna square it. But the subtraction sign goes with the term that follows. So technically, your second term is called -1 times parenthesis 4 plus 2 whole thing squared. So your second term now just adding another basically there's a multiplication involved as well, along with the addition exponents. So let's figure out the first term. 2 times -3 is -6, right? No problem. Second term. Do what's inside the parenthesis first, okay? So inside the parenthesis, 4 plus 2 is 6. I'm going to write it down right here. 6. Okay, I will still put the parenthesis on it. Why? Because I have an exponent on the outside, and I have a -1 times in front of that. So exponent first. 6 times 6 is 36. 36 times your -1. So remember now, this is still second term. I'm still doing this. 6 squared is 36. 36 times -1 is -36. So my second term comes out to be -36. My first term is -6. These two terms have the same sign. We will add. So that'll give me 42 first, right? Since both terms are negative, my answer will still be negative. So as you can remember now, add and subtract rules for the signs is different than multiply and divide. Okay, you always got to keep them separate. All right. All right, let's look at this one. 3 times 2 to the third plus, so that's a plus sign. 5 times parentheses 3 plus 2 minus, okay, so I got two addition subtraction signs outside the parentheses, so that should be three terms. So what's in front of the plus sign is one term. In between the plus and the minus sign is one term, and the plus sign go with the term that follows. Okay, so the second term is positive 5 times parentheses 3 plus 2. All right, 17 is a term behind the subtraction sign, and the sign go with it. So my last term is -17. Okay, so let's do the first term. In the first term, we got 2 to the third. Exponent go before multiplication, right? 2 to the third literally means 2 times 2 times 2. All right, there's a 3 in front of that. So this problem is really 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. And 8 times the 3 give me 24. So my first term is 24. Okay. My second term, I got to do what's inside the parenthesis first. So 3 plus 2 is 5. Okay, I'm going to put it right here. Should I put that 5 inside? Should I put that 5 inside the parenthesis or not? You don't need to because there's no exponent, there's no negative in front of it. So I can just say 3 plus 2 is 5 coming out of the parenthesis. But remember now, in front of that, there was a times 5, right? There's a positive 5 times 5. So that tells me my second term is positive 25. My last term is negative 17. So now this is 49 minus 17, which will give me 32. All right. Now let's take a look at this one. This one look kind of busy, right? This one look kind of busy, but let's figure out how many terms we have. Negative 12 times 6 minus 8 in the parenthesis plus. So that's a plus sign. 1 to the third times 3 squared times 2, then minus. So 3 terms again. By the way, 1 to the third power is not 3. It's 1 times 1 times 1, which is still going to be what? 1. All right, first term, negative 12 times 6 minus 8. Second term, positive 1 to the third power. Okay. And then my last term should be negative 6 times 2. All right, let's figure out the first term first. 6 minus 8 in the parenthesis first is negative 2, right? Term to a different sign, we will subtract. And this negative 2 will now times by negative 12 because between the negative 12 and the parenthesis, there's multiplication. So negative 12, let me put it down here. So this is negative 12 times negative 2. See, I put a negative 2 in the parenthesis because I'm being multiplied by another negative number up front. That's why I put it. Earlier, the positive 5, I didn't. Because if I do it like that, positive 5 times 5 is still positive 25. Negative 12 times negative 2 should be positive 24. So my first term, positive 24. My second term, positive 1 to the third is 1. Right? Times 3 squared is 9 times 2. So 1 times 9, positive 1 times 9 times 2 is still going to be positive 18. Okay. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, if the first term is positive, like this 24, then you don't have to write a sign for it. In algebra, the only time you do not write a sign for a term is when that term is the first term. Okay. Being positive, you don't have to write a sign for it. All right. My third term here, negative 6 times 2, negative 12. Okay. So I'm going to say positive, I'm going to combine positive 18 and negative 12 first. Positive 18, negative 12 combined, you can read this as 18 minus 12, which is positive 6. Positive 6 and 24 up front, 24 plus 6, you can say the answer is 30. Okay, this problem is a little bit busier, but it's not hard to figure out when you do it one term at a time. All right, now this one is tricky. I want you to take a look at this one got a lot of terms. Negative 27 minus negative 3 whole thing squared minus 2 minus 7 plus. This one has a lot of terms. First term is negative 27. I want you to take a close look at this second term. All right, let me just highlight. I'm running out of highlight here. Let me put the last one as yellow again. Positive 6 times 3. If you take a close look at this second term, a lot of people will say, oh, Mr. Chen, negative negative makes a positive. That's 3 squared. And that will be totally wrong. You have to say, you have to look at it as the second term is really negative, right? Negative how much is doing the multiplication. It's really -1 times parenthesis -3 whole thing squared. So if you do exponent first, that means this part need to be done first. So this is the entire -3 being squared. That's the equivalent of saying -3 times -3, which will give me +9. But this +9 need to be multiplied by that -1 times up front. So the answer is actually -9 coming out of second term. And there's a difference between without that parenthesis. If I do it like this, negative, right, just 3 squared. That technically means -1 times 3 squared, which will actually be -1 times 3, which will become -9. So there is a difference between having that parenthesis, then square on the outside the parenthesis versus without the parenthesis. Give you two different answers. All right. Excuse me. So my first term here is still -27. There's no operation. I'm going to write it down. Second term come out to be -9, right? The next term is -2. The next term is -7. My last term, fifth term, has a operation, which is +6 times 3, which is +18. Okay. So let's combine these, okay? So my first four terms, -27 minus 9, -2, -7. So when you combine them, they all have the same sign. So we basically just add. So 9 and 7 combined should be 16. 16 and that -2 -16 and -2 combined is -18. Right? If I'm combining these three small numbers first. So this problem is really saying -27, -18 plus 18. Is everybody okay? Right? -2, -9, -2 combined is -11. Same sign you add. -11, -7 combined. -11, -7 combined. You add them will be -18. +18 on the left. Okay, so now I want you to think about this. -18 plus 18. -18 plus 18. According to the commutative property, I can swap the order of the two terms. So I can move the +18 to the front, -18 stays in the back. So this problem is also equivalent of saying 18 minus 18, which is 0. So you can say they kind of cancel each other out. So my final answer is -27. All right. So you got to be very careful, when students see this, they right away. So let me just give you another problem. Okay, let me just do that. This -27 minus parenthesis -3 squared, right? Compare that to -27 minus parenthesis -3. Big difference because one has exponent, one don't, right? So that's why I never taught student, hey, when you see negative parenthesis negative, you automatically make that a positive. I never teach that. I always teach where this negative right here is -1 times -3 to say that's +3. Because then if I were taught negative negative makes a positive, then right here that will actually not be true. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out in case if you were wondering. All right, let's do some fraction. Fraction takes a little bit of work because we really got to do some work on the side here. So this main part of the body, you don't want to get too busy. It will be too hard to see. So here, -3/4 times parenthesis, right? These two fractions subtract plus. So I got two terms. My first term is this one. My second term, +5/16. So in my first term, I need to do what's inside the parentheses first. So I'm going to move that to the side, okay? See what it's how to be. So 11/12 minus 7/8. AOCD between 12 and 8, I'm not quite sure. What number can go into both of these? 4, right? So that will be, remember we talked about this before, finding the greatest common factor. 4 going to 12 3 times, 4 going to 8 2 times. Can you find me another number outside here that can go into both 3 and 2? No, other than 1. So I need to multiply all these numbers on the outside. So 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 3 is 24. So my LCD is 24. Okay, 12 become the new 24 times by 2. Numerator times by 2, that's 22. 8 becomes a new LCD 24 times by 3. Numerator times by 3, that's 21. 22 minus 21 is going to be 1 over 24. So this problem now becomes negative 3 over 4 times 1 over 24. So I'm not going to put that in the parenthesis because it's positive coming out. Even though I'm multiplied by a negative fraction, without the parenthesis will make it easier to do the next step. So what's the next step? Multiplying between two fractions is reduce top and bottom before I multiply. Okay, you don't want to jack this thing up 4 times 24 into a 96. Okay, 3 and 24 can be reduced by 3, so that gives me 1 and 8. So my first term, after all, coming out, negative times a positive is negative, right? 1 times 1 is 1 over 4 times 8 is 32. My last term, still positive 5 over 16. Okay, so now this problem now becomes addition between two fractions. Okay, so remember now, this is add and subtract now. So I got to follow the add and subtract rule. But since I'm combining fraction, I still got to find LCD first. By the way, LCD between 32 and 16 is 32. Okay, so my first one, negative, right? My first fraction was negative plus 32. The 32 going to 32 is 1 time, numerator times by 1, so that's still going to be negative 1. 32 becomes the new 32 times by 2, numerator times by 2, so that becomes 10. So now let's combine the numerator, negative 1 plus 10. Term with different sign, we subtract. So I get 9 first. Since I got more positive than negative, so that will be 9 over 32. Okay. All right, the last one. Okay, subtraction sign right here, addition sign right here. So I got 3 terms. My first term, simply the negative 11 over 16. My second term is a little bit busy looking. This is actually negative parenthesis 3/4 whole thing squared. Last term, positive 7 over 8. So my second term has operation. So I'm going to do this on the side. So the second term is really negative how much? Times the 3 over 4 squared. It's really negative how much? Negative what? 1, right? Times. Okay, so there are a couple of different ways to do this. I think the way we've been doing it is by saying, okay, the 3 over 4 whole thing got to be squared. That's the equivalent of saying 3 over 4 times 3 over 4. All right, times by the negative 1 up front. So negative times positive, the answer will still be negative. The 3 on the top cannot reduce with the bottom, so that gives me 9 over what? 16. So my second term is negative 9 over 16. My first term, negative 11 over 16. And plus 7 over 8. So the problem now reads negative 11 over 16 minus 9 over 16 plus 7 over 8. So as you can see, the LCD is now going to be 16. So I'm going to write this, okay? I'm going to write one big denominator, 16. So on the top, I'm going to write down the 3 numerators. So 16 going to 16 times by 1. So the first term times by 1 is still going to be negative 11. So I'm doing this on purpose. Write like this on purpose because it's easier to combine this way. 16 going to 16 1 times, numerator times by 1 is still going to be negative 9, right? 8 becomes the 16 times by 2. So the numerator positive 7 times 2 is positive 14. So if I combine these first two terms, negative 11 and negative 9, term with the same sign we add, so that gives me negative 20. So now I have a negative 20 plus a 14 on the top. So the two terms have different sign. We will subtract. So that gives me 6 over 16. But since I got more negative than positive, my answer will be negative 6 over 16. So if I reduce this by 2, my final answer, negative 3 over 8. Okay. All right. So just real quick on how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide real numbers involving order operations. So here you go. Here's some of the homework questions. So follow what we did earlier. Okay, identify your terms, right? So you gotta find all the plus or minus signs outside the parentheses. Okay, so you want to do one term at a time. So this is a long one. This is only one of these. So this long one, you got to do the exponent first. Okay, and then once the exponent is done, then you go from left to right. All right, this is a long one too. Figure out what's inside the parenthesis and square that. Then you become negative 1 times whatever this is, then divide it by 9. You got to do it from left to right. Positive 6, subtract, subtract. All right, well, addition sign right here, separate between two terms. Okay, so I kind of just pointing the arrow at where all the terms should be separated. Okay, now we'll conclude this video. Thank you for watching.